Welcome to Marketing People Love. My name is Jacques Spitzer, and today we're switching it up a little bit because I have a content creator, a businessman, an agency owner, someone who has built an audience from 0 people to over 5 million people, and he's going to teach you what he learned, both in posting over 100 videos in one day, not a month, not a year, one day, and he's going to share what his journey from 0 to 5 million followers has taught him about people, what they're looking for, and what they're looking for from brands. People started following you, started building something. How did this happen? Give me a sense of how this happened. And the question that I want you to answer to that is, what have you learned about people through the process of building this audience?
Okay. Yeah. I guess, like you said, it was never really like a thing that I'm like, oh, one day I'm going to have millions of followers and I'm going to do this for a living. And, sure, we all have like aspirations of the biggest and best in whatever field that we're doing. But if you were to ask me that like 6-7 years ago, I'd be like, I bet. Sure. But without making the story too long, we'll go back to, I want to say like middle school days. YouTube was his first coming out. We got Smosh. We've got Niga Higa, you've got all your original YouTubers, and me and my brother loved watching YouTube, So my dad bought us our first camera. We started making YouTube videos, and they were awful. They were so bad. Well, we loved it, we liked making YouTube videos. It was just me and my brother in the house doing like whatever we wanted to do. And I kept making videos all the way from middle school all the way until college for fun. And if you were to go find those YouTube videos now, they're really bad.
I'm gonna dig them up. No, I'm not.
Luckily, I can't find those accounts, but if I were to find them, I would probably look back on them and cherish them, because like those are like my early days. And then I want to say in college, while I was in college, I started to we got lockdown happened. We weren't allowed to do much. I was bored. I was in the house. Started making more social media videos than I had before. Picked up a little bit of traction. I had like one or two viral videos during the pandemic. And then I looked into it. I'm like, oh, what if I took this seriously, Like, I've got plenty of time right now. I'm just in school. What would taking it seriously look like? So I'm looking into like what different people do, how they did it. And one of the main things is like, you just have to be consistent, and then you'll learn through the process. So I took it seriously. And from then on, I want to say 2.5 years, I posted 3 to 5 videos every single day.
That's insane. On my socials. That's so many.
So many. 3 to 5 every single day, and took off, like in the first 2 months, I was able to gain over 100,000 followers in the first 2 months. And it's just thinking about that, like it blew my mind, just like seeing all the people that were interacting with all the stuff that I was doing. It's just like, I didn't even think it was like, it was like kind of hard for me to comprehend, because like you go from like whenever you would post stuff to like just your friends, like you wouldn't really care that you cared, but like you wouldn't care that much, because it's like, oh, how big of an impact can this really have? Now, like anytime you post something, it's like, okay, this could potentially reach hundreds of thousands, if not more. Anyways, that is kind of like my origin story for social media. There's I could tell you all kinds of different stories. And in that process, I learned a lot about like how people behave and what kind of things like make people interact when it comes to like videos. So my main thing that I would say I specialize in is short form video content. I've tried everything, long form, short form, pictures. My best thing is short form. So I've been able to figure out what makes people interact. And like there's a few main things that I like to tell people, but the main thing that makes people like stick around, come back for more, is providing value through the video. And what I've learned too is like, you probably hear this all the time, like people tell you like provide value, but what can that mean and what does that look like? There's a bunch of different ways, and some of the ways are not the most wholesome, but they're ways. So you can provide value through education, through comedy, through entertainment, through motivation. Some people through like sexual things, like people like to see cleavage, stuff like that. And there's a bunch of different ways you can provide value.
And to be clear, you're not showing your cleavage, correct? Even though your name is Mr. Spanks. I just wanted to, for our listeners out there, you were just listing potential options, correct?
Exactly. Those are some of the ways. And then like if you're on social media, then you've seen all of those different ways, and there's still different ways that you can provide value. But that's like the main thing that I've learned is like people are in general, they're not on here just for no reason. They want to gain something from it, whether it's, like I said, that motivation or that dopamine hit from something that they liked. And
I love
that's
that.
like one of the
I love
main
it.
things I learned about people when it came to like video content.
It's funny. I always say when I'm doing like a client presentation or a talk, I always say people are on the internet for like 4 main reasons. It's to like basically waste time. Like they want to
Uh-huh.
mindlessly check out to some extent. They want
Uh-huh.
to learn something. They want to be entertained, right? And I feel like when you look at a majority of content that does really well, it checks those boxes. I think one area that I know you do a lot of content around this, and I think it's really interesting is almost like reacting to things, right? Just even this weekend, I found myself, not to date this video too, or this podcast too much, but there's a lot of stuff going on with Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And like, I'm
Oh
doing
yeah.
everything I can to hold on to like my knowledge of pop culture. So I'm like trying to understand what's going on. And so, I think about the idea though of like watching other people react is really fascinating. You do a lot of reaction videos. What is your take on why people like reaction content?
Yeah. Reaction videos, what's funny is I don't necessarily like making reaction videos. I do it just because like it makes money, and I gotta pay bills. But first person I ran into that does like reaction stuff was he's a popular Twitch streamer. He goes by XQC. I don't know if you know who that is.
No.
Okay, he's a really popular Twitch streamer. He'll spend 18 hours on stream, and if you're spending 18 hours on stream, it's gonna be really difficult to jam pack it with like original content. So a lot of times he'll just sit there and react. And what's different than me watching a YouTube video versus watching a Twitch streamer react is the community aspect. So we're watching the same thing, but he'll put input onto a situation, and it feels more like a conversation that you're having rather than just watching it. And sometimes I would say things to just be controversial because I know that controversial things are like what make people interact. But I think just like the feeling of not watching it alone is why people like reaction content. I don't know why, but that's just kind of what I think
That's
is why.
really, that's an interesting, it's an interesting reflection. And something that I've been hearing, I'll let you have your question in a second because I keep hogging all the questions, but I'm so curious. One of the things that I've been hearing from so many creators is that the algorithm has changed even more in the last, we'll call it, year, to more and more reward. I don't know if the word would be, you just said it, but it's like not divisive, but it's like stuff that gets people commenting in the comment sections, getting them reacting to what you're saying. Have you seen any shifts, or you're like, no, that's always been the case? Something that's provocative is just going to break through in ways that things that aren't. Well,
I think in general it's kind of stayed the same. And the reason why, this is my take on it. I think the reason why it's important to the platforms is they're always trying to keep people on their platform. So whatever video keeps people on their platform the longest, then they push it. So if people are commenting and then they're staying on the app and then they're also coming back onto the app because they got a notification that somebody replied to their thing, then they're like, okay, this video is not only keeping people on the app longer, but it's also bringing them back. It's bringing them back on the app. So this video, maybe it'll do it again to somebody else. I feel like that even like since I don't know about like the early YouTube days, how that was, but ever since I've been doing like TikTok, it's always kind of been like that. Like whenever, and it doesn't necessarily have to be divisive. It could also be like kind of like a confusing thing. As long as it's making people interact. Like I've done videos where like I ended it on a confusing note on purpose, where people were like in the comments trying to figure out what happened, like, or why. So it's not necessarily divisive, but it is intentionally made to like engage. One of my really good friends, he makes content just like I just mentioned. He on purpose will say words wrong. Like he'll make a video about Elon
mispronounce
Musk,
it. Yeah.
and he'll intentionally say, "Oh, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world," or something like that on purpose, and say it really seriously. Yes. Because people will go in there and that's of course going to be the top comment. Bro said Elon bust. Like, so it doesn't necessarily have to be divisive, but for sure intentionally to made to engage, if you know what I'm saying.
I can't help but notice that there's a Seth Godin book in the background, right behind your head. This is Marketing, which is a book I've read as well. Curious, what had you buying a marketing book? What has you thinking like a marketer as you've built your multi-million person community?
Okay, well, I mean, I feel like marketing and like just like organic social media is like hand in hand. One of the first books I read was, I forget what it's called. I think it's called Catching Fire by Jonah Berger. I don't know if you've read it. That book and then like Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, both of those books talk about just like how ideas catch, and just like the concept of like how people grasp onto ideas. I found it very interesting because most of like social media is like the same thing over and over. It's just like, how can you stand out amongst the crowd? And a lot of these books, like, or marketing books, they're not necessarily meant for like social media creators, but they are like, they have like wisdom for like how to make ideas catch. And I just kind of was reading through books to see if like they maybe had like something that I could use in my field. And then also I have started a marketing agency recently.
Yep.
But I guess we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
But I bought this book before that.
Yep. So let's talk about what you're up to. I mean, obviously, it's always interesting because you have creators who have a hard time monetizing their audience, right? You have brands who don't understand how to provide and drive value on social media, both organically or as advertising. And you also have people who are on the cutting edge of what it takes to win now. And so that's why I'm having you on the podcast, right? I'm like, okay, people who are out there need to hear that, there's a couple different ways to win. One of them is just sheer volume. I mean, something that you said earlier, which I don't think people are taking in, is you were posting 21 to 30 times a week. I'm like, that's, that there's a lot to that. That is beyond a full-time job. That's an obsession. That's beyond a full-time job. And the example I give to people is, I'm like, okay, the only thing standing between me and being a world-class bodybuilder is doing all the hard work that it takes to be a world-class bodybuilder. It's not like if I, you know what I mean? It's like, if I were willing to eat right and get in the gym for 4 hours a day, and was willing to pump myself with a little bit of drugs, I'd probably be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not. I'm not. I've been working on my fitness. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. Summer's around the corner. But I think you're one of the few people that have lived that through to actually post that much. And so, how are you taking? Like, I'd love to understand how you're taking those learnings, and then what are you doing on the, whether it's your agency or brand consulting side, how is that all coming together for you?
Yeah, you made a lot of really good points. See, I did post a lot, and it was just a sheer, like, I like to say, I brute forced it. There's people out there that can do it, and they post twice a week, and they have well surpassed like any success I've ever done. And more power to them. I would love for them to give me that formula, but I think it's sometimes like people, it's luck based, it's a bunch of different things, looks based and all kinds of different things.
Sure.
Anyways, the reason why I did that is because like I felt like for me, I have like an obsessive personality. So if I like something, I'll do it a little bit too much. So I like to choose the things that are good for me.
Yeah.
Because I could, like, I'm sure I've done it in the past, like video games. I've played way too many video games, so I had to cut it. But, like, whatever it is that I choose, I'll do it to the point where it's like, dude, are you okay? Like, maybe you should get some sleep. And, like, like, to the point, like, one day I made a challenge. I posted 100 videos in one day. 100 original different videos in one day. It's, if you, look at the numbers, it's like one every 8 minutes.
What was the result of that? How did that go?
It went really well, I had 4 videos that went viral that day, all over like several million out of 100. What I learned from it was the biggest thing is like, okay, here's the 4 videos that went viral. For the next month, I just did those videos. So at that point, like, I was still trying to figure out what I like to do. That's like when I figured out like Omegle stuff would work. And I did like a bunch of interviews on Omegle. So after that day, I did more Omegle interviews, and I would do 3 Omegle interviews, 3 mystery box interviews, 3 instead of
Start
I was
narrowing
just
the
doing all
focus.
kinds of random stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
And after that day, I was like, okay, these are the videos that work. Do more of those 3 times a day, 3 to 5 times a day instead of whatever. And that's that. I would say that literal day is what got me from I want to say like 600,000 up to 3 million followers. Because after that, like it was kind of an incredible growth. To go back to your point about what you said earlier, sometimes it's hard for people that do like organic content to monetize. The main way I was monetizing my social media was just strictly through ad revenue. And so all of my money is based off of my views are good for that month. And that is extremely, extremely stressful because it gets to the point where it's like, okay, this video idea that I've been doing isn't working anymore. I kind of have to do something outrageous because I know outrageous works, but that doesn't necessarily, I don't necessarily want to do that, you know? Like, but you're living in an apartment in LA right now. Like, if you want to be able to pay your rent and eat this month, you kind of got to do something, you know?
Could you give me a sense of what does outrageous mean to you? Because you're not getting naked. So what does that mean?
No. I
just like, what does outrageous mean to Jay Spanks?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't necessarily like to cuss. So, like if I were to, like, leave cussing in a video, that's not outrageous. But, like, for example, I would go onto Omegle, and people would say some crazy, crazy stuff to me. And a lot of times I'm like, this would go viral so fast.
Right.
But it's not good I don't want this message being spread on my page. I don't want to be associated with that, so we'll just cut it completely, even though I know this video would do really well. But it would get to the point where, like, now I'm drawing the line a little bit. I'm moving the line a little bit.
Yep.
I'm moving the line a little bit.
Yep.
So that's just kind of like what I would say is outrageous. So I came to like a point where it's like, okay, how do I use the things I've learned and create some sort of like consistent income, you know? And that's kind of where I've been in the last several months. I want to say like 4 or 5 months. So I started a company. It's called Spanks Media LLC, and my mission is to help local business owners grow their companies through social media content. So I've been just kind of going around town, talking to different business owners, letting them know like, hey, here's the things I've done in the last few years. I think that I can transfer that knowledge onto your guys' company and help you guys grow your guys' social media through video content. And I've been putting my social media on the back burner. I still make my videos, but that's on the back burner, and most have been focusing on helping companies. Which is why I said I have questions for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is like your bread and butter.
Yeah.
I feel like what differentiates me from, like, especially here in town, what differentiates me from like other like people that are helping with social media marketing is I had to rely on it for years. Like that was my full-time income. So it was like, go viral or you don't eat, you know? And I feel like a lot of like the social media people, at least in my town, they came out of college with like a social media marketing degree or something like that, a marketing degree, and not very much field experience. Or like they've always had like the reliance of this company's going to pay me regardless of whether or not we do well.
So let me ask you this. That's going to be the biggest question, you know, someone listening to the podcast is going to have coming out of this is like, well, how do I apply this to my business? Right? Like, okay, this is crazy. This is great. So I'd love to hear, like, what are you even doing with local groups? And then you got questions for me, and I want to make sure you can ask them. But what are you doing with these local groups that you feel like is different than the beauty of this is like you can give it away, and it still doesn't really matter because they still need someone to like coach them through it.
You still have to do it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So first, like, I'll look at the accounts and be like, yeah, this is cool. I think some of the things that like what you guys do is good. I think like just having a presence is good for local businesses, because if like you don't have a presence, then just a lot of people, you don't even exist. Like if you don't have an Instagram,
Yep.
Your local restaurant, you kind of just, sometimes you just don't
Yep.
exist. But how do we get the word spread out
Yep.
more is the difference, you know? And what I've been doing is just, like a lot of these companies, they'll have videos already, but what I tell them is like, okay, imagine you're just a random person here in Fresno. This is where I live. I live in Fresno, California. Imagine you're just a random person here in Fresno and you're scrolling on your feed, right? Most people they don't really want to be sold anything. They're like I said earlier, they want the value, right? They want the value. So my job is to to make videos that are actually, that kind of blend in with the feed. You know what I'm saying? Like they blend in what they're naturally watching already and they want to watch. So I'm more of like helping them make entertaining videos that kind of already are similar to what they are watching, the consumers are watching already. So for example, one of my clients is a local baseball park. It's a baseball park. And all I've been doing is I'll put a microphone on the kids and then I'll let them play their game like how they usually play. And then I'll chop the video up into like an entertaining little piece of content. And they eat it up. The people eat it up. Because it's just an entertainment, but they also didn't even realize that they're kind of watching
the park.
The park, and then over time they realize like, oh, where is this park at? Oh, that park's in my town, and then like it's been picking up traction here in town. That's just like one example.
Yeah, I mean it's always about finding the connection point to like, why would someone want to consume this? I mean, something that I always say is people buy their own why, and so it's like a lot of times it's, instead of pushing a message out into the world, hey, this is what I want to tell the world. It's like, how do you bring the world in? How do you give them what they want? They don't want content about a baseball park. They want to be entertained with cute kids. And it's like, they happen to learn about the baseball park. That's what they want. It's like, no one wants footage
Nailed it.
of a baseball park. They never will.
No.
But it is interesting because when people say, one of my favorite things people ask me is, can you do this for my brand? Right? And I'm like, that's why I find something like a liquid death water so interesting. I'm like, it's water. It is water. Like, you could do it for anything. You could do it for vanilla ice cream. You could do it for water.
Sure.
You could literally do it for anything. And finding that creative solution that's where the magic can happen. And I was very inspired by the idea of not being afraid to post a lot of content, create a lot of content, in order to find out and narrow what works best. Because ultimately, that's what we see with a lot of our brands that are in a startup type of phase, is you can hypothesize all day about what will or won't work. You can borrow inspiration from other brands. You can look at what other creators are doing. But until the rubber hits the road and you actually put it out in the world, you don't know. And so picking that one thing and hoping it works is a direction you can try. To your point, some people post 1 or 2 videos a week and it works. A lot of brands, I think, want to be that. And I would say that's an option. The other option is just somewhat of pure volume until you find the things that fit. And those are 2 very different approaches. And I'll tell you, one is a prayer to me and the other is a game plan. And that's the difference between a marketing strategy and hoping for virality.
Yeah, one of the things I used to always say, I don't say it as much anymore because I don't do it as much as I used to, but it's like, it's like going viral is like kind of like winning the lottery. It's like, well, if you want to win the lottery, then you kind of want to buy more lottery tickets. I use the
same analogy.
And the more lottery tickets
I use the same analogy. I'm like, you can't win unless you're buying tickets, Yeah,
there you go. And then like, let's say, for example, you want to do just 1 or 2 a week. Well, and then you figure out which ones work. Well, it's going to take you a whole year to figure out which ones work versus the guy that figured it out in less than a month. And then let's say, for example, he figures it out in a month and then everything switches. People don't like this type of content anymore. And now you're trying to switch again. It's going to take you another year.
What's even crazy, I'm going to give you this analogy because it's so true. And it's used around the idea of perfection and creativity. And it is that they did a study that if you were to take 2 new students and you put them in like a pottery circumstance, so they had to make a vase, right? Have you heard this one? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say it anyway for people. Yeah,
I love it. Say it anyways.
So if you take 2 students and one student you say, make as many pots as you can over the next week. And the other one you say, hey, try to make a perfect pot and learn how to make a perfect pot. and you just give them those two different directions, at the end of the week, the one that's just sheer volume is going to make a more perfect pot than the perfect person who's tried to learn how to make a perfect pot for a week, just by the sheer volume of doing and doing and doing and doing. And I'm like, that is so fascinating. I can't tell you how many people I talk to, and they're so wrong. They're so scared of making the wrong decision or doing the wrong thing that they do nothing at all, or they do that one thing and they don't get enough data back to learn what's working and what's not. And it's like sometimes sheer volume is the play, because you need the reps to know what's going to work best.
Yeah. I think also Gary Vee has a good point on what you just said. Some people are a little bit scared about putting out the wrong thing. I think that if you come from the perspective is like, I'm putting out something that is morally right. Like, it's not like meant to tear people down. It's like it's coming from a good place, you know? Then, and it may not perform like you want it to, but you'll be okay, is what basically is what he's saying. It's like, you'll be all right. Like, you're coming from a good place, like, and it has good intent. So then there's really not much else to worry about, you know? It'll do what it's going to do. Nothing else to worry about that.
It is, dude. I've been trying. I'm like, I want to give you an opportunity because I've been asking all of them.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So you have been, so you're CDO of Raindrop. Does that mean you were there from the beginning? Like,
I was the first employee.
Or you're just CEO?
No, I'm the first. I was number one. Employee number one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. All right. If you had to start from scratch today, you're starting a marketing agency today, how would you approach it?
Man, if I had to start it today.
All the way. Just you.
Oh, man. And so I would say that if I had to go back earlier, I would be asking myself that question sooner, just because I think that you can waste a lot of time or energy chasing down what you can do for people versus what you can do best for people. And those are two different questions.
That was a really good answer. That was a great answer. I don't know if I was expecting that, but that was good. It gave me chills, low key. I really
you're
like
in that moment, right? Like, you can do something. You can do something one of one that no one else can do, right? Most people have never posted 100 videos in one day. 0.0000001% of the world, right?
Yep.
You got 5 million followers. Again, 0.0000001% of the world, right? Those are things that
right.
It's hard to replicate that experience. And to bring that to a local baseball park,
absolutely.
I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I love those guys. I grew their account from 0 to 42,000 subscribers in 12 videos. I wish I could do that for myself. Back in the day, but you know. It's one of those things. It looks like overnight for all the people watching them, but it was years and years and years of learning the stuff. Okay, ready for the next one. So one thing I've struggled with is converting viewers into buyers. Like I told you, is like I spent most of my time getting views. I've done brand deals. They've always I may have made an entertaining video, but they don't sell. I do like, even now, like I'll do like TikTok shop. I haven't really spent that much time looking into it, but I felt like I've always had a hard time with converting viewers into buyers. Maybe I'm thinking about it in the wrong light, like trying to convert, or like, how does one like go about using a video to like actually get somebody to purchase?
So, the great enigma of selling. Right? The great enigma. I would say, it's interesting because intent of the viewer is a fascinating thing. I would say that, to your point, I think a lot of people assume that if you have people's attention, you'll be able to sell, right? And the reality is, and this is the interesting part, is you can't sell anything without the attention, right? So it's like, okay, you're doing the math. I'm like, wait. Like, I need attention in order to sell, but just because I have attention doesn't mean I'm going to sell. That's confusing. I will also say, uniquely, our agency has made some of the top performing ads in YouTube history, ads for Dr. Squatch, and William Painter, and Native, and, the list goes on, Bones Coffee. These ads, when I was talking to a couple of people with Mr. Beast, and I was like, so my job is to make ads that are better than the content that you're about to make, because they're going to skip my ad to get to your content, right? So I got to make a better ad. And I'm like, that's a really high bar, right? It's a really high bar.
Yeah.
And so what I'd say is that the best ads are videos that create what I call a moment in the mirror for the viewer, right? They have to get people to a place where they're like, oh, wow, I haven't thought of that before. So with the Dr. Squatch ads, when we said, like, the lines that were really important were things like, you're not a dish, you're a man, right? With liquid dish soap. So now it's like, I'm thinking, if I use liquid dish soap, right? Not dish soap, but liquid soap in my shower, now I'm conveying like, hey, you're not a dish, you're a man. And so it connects those two dots for people. It's entertaining, it's funny, but it's challenging. So is lines like, we have one that opened with, the soap you're showering with is shit. You're probably still using the same bar your mommy bought for her little man. So then any man who is using the same soap that they grew up on, all of a sudden has like a challenge, right? It's like, oh, I had this moment in the mirror. And so well, I think one of the things that we've noticed over and over again, and we still have to push even the brands we work with today, is they want to get straight into solution-oriented selling. So they're like, hey, I'm this brand, this is great. I got this pen, it's the best pen ever, it flows, blah, 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 blah. And like, they kind of miss the mark because they just jump into like, hey, let me tell you why this pen is great. Or UGC style, like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with this pen. Let me tell you why, right?
Yeah. That was definitely a problem I've had for pretty much my entire content creation journey. Still going through it, but I kind of just, I really don't want to have to sell for other companies anymore. And that's kind of why like I'm doing my own thing now.
Yep.
It's honestly doing well. I think that like I'm really early, so that's why I was like really excited to take this, because I'm like, I'm gonna be able to learn so much from somebody that's done it, and is continuing to do it and at the highest level.
All right, that's all we have for you today on Marketing People Love. If you want to find out more about Jay, check out Jay Spanks on TikTok or YouTube, Instagram, everywhere you can find short form content. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share and subscribe to follow along. Until next time, I hope you're enjoying finding Marketing People Love.